something unique.
Maybe so.
It's between the ice and the hills,
Yeah.
because I've worked all over the place, and I don't have problems driving in the snow in Chicago or
Yeah.
Colorado.
But everybody else, does.
Here?
I don't go.
No, here, I'm as bad as anybody. I was like, I didn't want to touch it.
I try to stay in the second story of my house.
There you go.
Our driveway is not real steep, but it is a hill, and it's narrow, and it's curved, and it's long. And I look out and I go, if I don't feel like going up that driveway, then I'm not going anywhere. But if I can get up the driveway, I'm good. But I find less and less things compel me to drive now.
Thank you very much.
Sort of like your husband with the truck. Say, do I need a new car?
Yeah.
I really like the one I have. So.
Should we start?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, Diana was gonna be remote, so it's feeling good, so I'll keep an eye on her
Okay.
if she comes in virtually.
And then I'm afraid of saying her name,
I call it Devani.
Devani. Does anybody know if that's how you pronounce Devani's name?
I don't.
She's our other new.
We'll have to
well,
ask her.
I know, so no,
Devani, I can't remember.
well, don't record, yes, let me get that. She's actually just left for Ireland, so she was like, I'm not gonna be there. And then
That's cool.
so she's excited to be here. The other thing, future reference, you guys, Karen, this agenda would come out the previous Thursday. That's actually our standard protocol. We were all over the place. So normally you
My
have
fault.
it, well, even I was like, did we ever?
We do.
So just
No
so you know,
worries.
that will be the standard. It comes out the 6 days ahead of time. That was based on the council's, new, what is that called?
Rules.
Thank you.
No,
A notification rule. I think it is. It's really a notification
It is.
rule.
Well, because they want it available not just for us, but other people that
No,
are interested
but
in
even
seeing
for
what we're
them,
doing.
just
Right.
giving you a chance
Yeah.
to really review. So I apologize.
And,
No, it's not her fault at all. It's mine. Before Christmas, I got the flu, turned into a really bad respiratory infection, and I'm not contagious at all, not even a little bit, but if you want, I do have a mask, but I'm not. But I just like shut down my office, and it's like, do we need to do an agenda? It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, and I was
Yeah.
gonna type one up, but then I had 22 meetings this week. This
wow.
is my last one. Luckily, 3 of them got canceled.
New
but
Year's
it's
interesting,
just
isn't it?
been like,
Wow.
so I've been running, so that was part of the reason why I didn't follow up sooner, so.
I just canceled meetings this week. Not this week, last week I canceled.
It's good to be retired.
Yeah. But never forget what it was like.
No, I remember it. I remember it quite well.
Push record when you're ready.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. That's on me. All right, we're gonna call the Westland Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting to order this Thursday, January 11th. We have a new member, actually, we have 2. One is in Ireland, unfortunately. Hope they're having a great time. I worked in Ireland for 3 years, and it's not fun in January.
Oh, really?
But we have Karen, right, who has joined us here tonight. And before we get into everything, I wanted to start with introductions. And if we can go around the table, introduce ourselves, what neighborhood you live in, and one thing in Parks and Rec that is really, what do you use most? What do you use most in all the Parks and Rec? I'll start. My name is Vicki Handy. I've been on the Parks Board a long time. Love it. I live in the Willamette neighborhood. And the thing I do now is kayak out of Willamette Park. That's how I use it, since my boys are grown. So let's go around the room, and then we'll end with Karen. You can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Scott Irwin, city councilor. Fairly new, I guess, to Parks and Rec Board. I'm the liaison to city council. Robinwood is my neck of the woods, and I just, the kids just love playing on the athletic fields and making me sweat trying to keep up with them.
Awesome.
I'm Megan Big John. I am the Westland Parks and Recreation Director. I still feel weird saying that. I've been here going, I think, just 2.5 months, so I'm relatively new as well. Came from Lake Oswego, Parks and Recreation there. I live in the Robinwood neighborhood as well. And during the summertime, my family uses the Cedar Oak boat launch as for kayaking and swimming a lot. So,
2 neighbors of mine so far.
okay, look at that.
There's more.
John Lindman, I live in the Hidden Springs area. This is my 5th term on the Parks Board, so I've been here as long as you've been here, maybe a little bit longer. I know we see each other for a long time. And I spend most of my time at Marius Young Park. I'm part of a volunteer group that started there now 16 years ago to work on things. And what I'm really interested in is the trails, because I'm a runner and a coach at the high school for distance running, and I help maintain the trails. Oh, yeah, I got lots.
Swag.
I was just
My
at
daughter
practice.
for 1
We,
year.
distance runners run all the time, so I just came from practice. We were lifting weights after we ran.
That's great.
Chris Owens, also from Robinwood.
We can take over.
Yeah, well, so been on the board 3 years, and, what I love the most is, Marius Young Park trails. Not a runner anymore, but, do a lot of just walking in the park. And between the shoreline there and the trails is just wonderful.
Can I ask, what's War Eagles?
Oh, it was, unit, I'm a retired Marine, and
Okay.
it was like about 20 years ago.
All right.
I'm Sarah Lincoln, Recreation Supervisor here in Parks and Rec Department. And I don't live here. But I'm fortunate enough to be out with all of our events and our programming to almost every park, pocket park, big park. You know, we've got events everywhere all summer long and programming out there. Exciting.
So to give her a little bit more credit than she's giving herself, she is in charge of all of the recreational programming and does all the volunteer coordinating, and so she does a lot.
She's amazing.
She
Yeah,
does like
she-
3-person job.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
does a
A
lot.
little bit of everything here. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really nice.
Yeah.
But outside of that, yeah.
But she'll be, you may get emails from her individually as some of the coordinating with her goes on. If you ever need a link from outside, Tara's usually the one who will be connecting with you, so.
Hi, my name's Todd Olson, and I am over in the Barrington Heights neighborhood, and starting my 2nd term of being on the Parks and Rec
You
board.
came back, so that's a good
I
sign.
did. It was fun, and it's a great group to be with, and a lot of neat things. You know, my wife and I enjoy going out and using a lot of the trails, and like, Wilderness Park. Not too many people know about that sometimes.
Don't tell her.
I know.
We got a group working on fixing those trails. They're doing a good job, putting a little gravel down.
So anyway, it's like that area. Love music in the park up at Tanner Creek in the summertime. And, I have big interest in some of the things on the agenda, including the, recreation center update.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of what got me back, was not only the group here, but also the cool stuff that's coming down the pipe. And we want to make sure stuff gets done down at Waterfront.
Mhm.
Well, I'm Karen Kellogg. We've lived on Kensthorpe Way in Robinwood for about 18 years. We moved from Lake Oswego back in the days where my friends were like, "Oh my God, that's so far
I know.
out. You're gonna live there?" Like, what?
5 minutes.
I don't get it, but we love it. We're big users of Marius Young and big users of Cedar Island and the boat ramp because we have our kayaks and we have a boat, and I like to run my dogs, and so I always consider that I'm very protective of that area. So kind of 2 things. I'm the unabashed person, and I pat myself on the back. I pick up trash in Marius Young, on the water, and Cedar Island every day in summer. No lie. My husband likes to trash bags out. And then
Outside is how much you have to pick up.
Yeah, and it really depends.
Really sad.
And so I always talk to the guys that are, do the trash pickup. I'm like, how does this happen? And they're like, we don't know. I'm like, well, here's 2 bags for you, So,
Well, it's really helpful though.
Yeah.
It genuinely is.
well,
for a lot of
and
people.
that's just my thing. I really care about the nature, and I care about the birds and all the little life that goes on down there. So, when I saw this, I thought, oh, this would be cool. But I also am very active. I take like all the exercise classes up at the community center. So I thought, okay, we got the parks, we got the community center, and then I'm very interested in the proposed maybe recreation center that's coming up, and I thought, oh, that would be kind of interesting to get involved with. So happy to be here, and I'm retired, and I do dogs and play a lot and cook a lot, and I love West Linn. I can truly say I love West Linn, so.
Welcome. I think,
Thank you.
I think that this is the nicest group of all of the groups that meet. Just saying.
Just saying.
I'm really appreciative of that.
Well, as a citizen, I've always found the Parks and Rec staff pretty easy to work with, and if, you know, I'm always the lady, guys, you know, there's graffiti down on the so-and-so, so I'm always the rat out everybody lady, but, you know, we live.
They like to hear when something's
We
wrong.
do,
Yeah.
we actually, we actually.
No, well, you know what, it makes
Like,
me,
thank
it
you.
makes me so
Communicator,
mad
not
that
rat out.
people do this, so I want it cleaned up and fixed, and I feel like if it gets corrected, maybe then people are less likely, I don't know who does it.
You know, you'll be surprised at who does it. It's younger than you think usually. It's really surprising. Those middle schoolers are
Middle
quite,
school boys.
it is crazy.
They're the-
And now
they're the
we're able
ones.
to catch a lot of it on camera, and you're like, you think teenager, and you think high school. They got their cars, they're doing other.
Yeah, they're having
It's
more
those
fun.
middle schoolers who are really bored.
And on the mean streets of West Linn.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's always a big issue with me, and I feel very protective of that area, because we live right on the bluff, so I look out at Cedar Island, I look out at what's going on at the river, I look and I can see all the people on the shore, I'm like, oh yeah, they're gonna be doing trash, it's like, oh yeah, I know, and the people have fires, and I guess I feel like I want everyone to be able to enjoy it and not have certain people hijack it and ruin it for the rest of us. Because when people start really leaving a mess and ruining things, then it messes it up for everybody, and then we have to have new rules, and then it's not fun anymore.
Personal responsibility.
Well, good. Anyway, I was really happy when I got invited, so.
Oh, welcome. We're happy that you're with us.
Hang on, I'm trying to.
Is Diane here?
She's trying to verify.
I am, finally. I apologize.
Can you come
I was
on
having to-
camera? Okay, you don't have to if you don't want to.
I don't know if Tara told you, I have COVID.
Oh.
That's why I
feel
called.
so sorry.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I just,
Hope you're doing okay.
Thank you. I'm feeling better this afternoon after a good shower. But anyway, let's go on.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Diana. When you get back, we'll have you introduce yourself when you're feeling a little bit more up to it.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to.
Okay, you got the agenda and summary document emailed to you.
Yes.
Is there somebody who can approve the minutes? Motion to approve?
Approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then the summary note? Were there any questions or comments about that?
Good to me. I move we approve them.
Okay, second?
Again?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes. So, do we have anybody for community comment? All right, we're just gonna move it right along then. Community Recreation Center,
Yeah,
what's the latest on that?
done. Going to council on Tuesday with the second phase proposal, cost proposal from MIG to, we went through first phase and do a little bit of summary. First phase, and I have to say the article that was in the newspaper yesterday was not quite right. It already kind of invoked a couple comments of, it alluded, if you didn't read it correctly, that we were going to move forward with the phase 2 and moving forward with the rec center. And so I already got a call, like, how come we didn't get it? I'm like, no. So everybody has the right correction. We find out on Tuesday if we are going to move into phase 2 as we present the cost and fee schedule. I didn't want to bring that today because I need to show it to council. They've got it. It's coming out. To really have this robust outreach in a very short amount of time. If I had a choice, I would have a full year to do that, but this is the schedule that's come in. And I think we're going to be set up to do that. But what I need to make sure is you guys are set up to help us if council decides to move forward. So we're presenting the scope of work to council and looking at the fee schedule. The current fee is $263,000.
Wow.
for, I know, right? It's hard to hear that cost as everything's expensive. To see that will end up taking us to the next step. So we've done this baby step of reaching out to a lot of people, and because of great responses, council wanted to go further, one more step. This will include the statistically valid survey in there, a lot more, it's all listed in how many neighborhood meetings, steering committee meetings, how many times we presented to Parks Board, how many times we presented to council, and then on top of that, staff will be, I think it might be me, staff will be going to other meetings and amongst that time frame to be able just to continue to engage the conversation. And then through that process, as soon as we can, it probably won't be until April or May, no, not even April, May. End of March, middle of April, that we'd have some larger renderings and some more operational plans. Ideally, we would love to have had that kind of more so first to be able to present, but we still have some more fine tuning to that they'll be working through simultaneously as we're starting our outreach. And then being able to then get to that point, are we going to move forward to have that package? Does council want us to take this to the ballot or not? So the time frame is, I think I mentioned before, you guys may have heard, we have to have the full package completed by July 8th to turn in. So when you're looking at our window, like
So we
Chris,
can vote on it in November.
in November. So like when Chris was here, man, I would have loved to done, but he's having the whole summer, go to community events to really get that face out there. But we have this short time frame. It feels doable, but it's going to be a lot of work. And so trying to get enough pieces together to make sure you guys are on board if we get the approval, and how we kind of work together with the steering committee, neighborhood associations, anybody else who wants to help educate and advocate and get the feedback, you know, positive or negative. We want to hear it to then be able to give council a real good information of, is this really viable? And so that is that's the end goal. The one thing I want to clear up is a newspaper article, depending on how you read it, it read that a pool is part of this process, and as we all know, it is not. We are definitely going to be outlining, like we talked, to show the space for a pool in phase 2, but council did not direct us to include a pool in that. And I think that was wise on this space because that's what we had available at the time for funding. That was seemed tangible. So we don't want to lose, again, any of those who are swimming desire people. We want to be able to show that footprint, but this is what we've been asked to do, and then council will be able to take that and do what they want with it as they direct us. Sorry, I'm talking like Scott's not here. I have the council here. Feel free to interject.
You're great.
Am I doing okay?
You're perfect.
Okay. So, that's where we're at. So I really, I mean, and I'm talking like he's not here. I don't have a feeling really how it's going to go. I think the community clearly has a desire, and that is exactly what the council is trying to find out. We need to explore that more. So we'll be presenting that. And we are going to be open with the costs like we were before. We were like, this is what it's going to cost. This is what the operational expenses are. And the numbers that we had originally presented are going to be fine too. I mean, those are really high in the sky. They'll come down to what is more realistic and what it'll take to operate it, how much of a deficit each year we could potentially have, what the overall cost will be with what the items that have been asked for.
Breathe.
I do that, don't I? So I just get excited. So I think with it, it's going to be interesting. I can't really get a pulse on what it'll be. I think since the mission is to try to find what the community is wanting, it feels like that will move forward because they want to know, and we need to do that due diligence. So this will be fine tuning it more. It will be a marathon. But I think we're going to do it well. Actually, I'm going to commit that we're going to do it well and get all the feedback we can. And like I said, positive and negative, so we can really inform the council well.
So what exactly is being presented to council on Tuesday?
They have the scope of work from MIG with the actual items, so the amount that, and I could actually pull that up if we need to, but it talks about the amount of outreach that they're going to be doing and then also.
So it's not going through the renderings or anything, it's the SOW.
It is totally, that, just to say, are we willing to pay for this and move forward with it?
And then
So,
in the SOW, did they include staffing and resources for graphics, communications, marketing pieces?
Yep. They did, and those things that what they're going to do is even like we have to do a traffic study again because the most recent traffic study on Parker Road was 2013. We don't want to pay for that right up front because if we're starting to get the sense that this is not going to go, so we're kind of holding off on that. The same thing with those graphics. They're going to get some of them staged and get them as we go through this process. So we're gonna kind of see that at the end, we'll have this package to full package thinking of going all the way to the ballot. So they're gonna be staging us through that process. So if we just get blowback at the beginning, we will have to come and say, what should we do?
Mhm.
So I think it's really strategic, and even just some of Vicky's ideas of executive summary for, a master plan is easier to have an understanding of executive document, but having that snapshot of that recap of all that's going on and why and how the funding is, and no, we're not selling the adult community center to make the rec center, like all those questions, to have that there, well, it keeps coming up, and that's just where.
We are not.
I know people, the part that I love is they're
Don't
worried,
condemn.
they care about the ACC so much.
Yeah.
So, it's actually nice, but just to kind of dispel those thoughts and rumors, and making sure that those pieces of paper that we have and those infographics really can show that,
Mhm.
right? So, yeah, that's all there. I'm excited for it. I hope it goes through, because I feel like we owe the community a chance to really vet it out. It is hard to see when you the dollar amount it takes to get to that point, let's be honest. But I think I thought we had a good process before, but we learned a lot through it since I came through at the end, and we'll be able to hone in on those things as we go through.
Okay.
Helpful?
Any questions or comments?
Thanks, Brad. That's me.
Oh, well,
sorry.
no, if there's questions based on what she said.
Oh, briefly.
Yeah.
No, this is all big picture, but.
Sorry. I just-
No, but briefly, no, you didn't. But briefly, what is the outreach process? How do we get to all these people and find out what they really think or want?
Yeah, so we do all we can, but people have to also engage too. So there's the statistically valid surveys, those phone calls that are vetted, phone calls, online surveys, going to a lot of meetings in person, having a lot of information on social media, having things on the website. Like, all of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm not used to updating the website for projects. In LA, we had a project manager, and it dawned on me today when I got a call that I hadn't put the rest of the information on there. So Tara scrambled to help me get that stuff up there today. But just really making sure that we get it out there. Last time they put codes within the kiosks at the parks, using A-frame boards, like really just showing that we're really making that effort. Because even when you put it all out there, if people don't engage in any way with the community and then they're offended by it, it's really hard, because we've tried so much, but you have to want to be engaged too. So making sure we've hit all avenues that we can. And that code is going to be really helpful, because people can just draw into it, click it, take it home. But we're going to have to push it out because our timeline is so tight.
Can you forward their SOW to us?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was gonna.
At least the breakdown structure.
Oh, is it attached to
Maybe
the
after.
agenda?
Yeah, it's attached to the agenda and to my
Okay.
staff report.
There you go.
So,
Look
yeah.
at the agenda,
Yep.
So it's at the city council agenda.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
for next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And
So it should be
then-
posted already in
Should be
there.
up there,
But
yeah.
I can definitely send it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
In case I don't get to it before, I should do it tomorrow. But yeah.
And then I guess two things I wanted to tack on there is, well, one, from my conversations with the city manager, to be able to really, establish the pool that we think the community wants, we have to maybe really think about, like, well, what's going on in Wilsonville? Because Wilsonville wanted it. Can we do a multi-municipal thing? There's the North Clackamas Aquatic Center. Maybe there should be the West Clackamas Aquatic Center. A lot of people living in the rural area between Wilsonville and here, and Wilsonville and Westland both have the same school district. So I'm not sure if we're able to initiate something with them. Will it be fast? Will it happen? I don't know. But, it's about making sure we're staying active with the vision, that we're having ideas and we're willing to explore ideas. If they're reasonable, then it's like, yeah, let's try to make these things happen, There's also one other thing to be mindful of is it's about how we communicate regarding numbers. It's very interesting. This is, personal anecdote. I met with this couple and I was talking with them, and I talked about the rec center. I said, oh yeah, what if the rec center resulted in your property taxes going up, like, just throw that number out, $100 a month. And we're like, whoa, that's a lot. And I was like, yeah, that is a lot of money. And they were like, I don't know if I can get behind that. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. And I talked with them some more, and they said that they're members of the Bay Club. And they pay $470 a month for their Bay Club membership. And I said, oh, okay, so if you had a membership at our new, recreational community center, if we had exercise room and an indoor gym, you could do like a yoga class or something. I'd be like, oh, that'd be awesome. And it's like, yeah, and I'm sure like a membership would be what, maybe $100 a month? They'd be like, oh, yeah, that's so much cheaper, that'd be great.
More than that?
It'd be a lot more than that.
I know.
Okay, I was just like going,
But it would definitely be cheaper than
Yes.
$470 a month.
right, and in your neighborhood.
Yeah, and within local driving range. And they liked the idea of going to someplace that was in their community, where then they knew everyone around, most of the people around were people within the community, and it wasn't just, these are people here just to exercise, it is a community center. So it's very interesting when you talk to people and they're like, no way, that sounds great. And you're like, okay, or but it's like, yeah, you gotta take out a little time to chat with them, right? That's on all of us to do.
But what you describe is what a lot of people are thinking. What's it gonna do to my property tax?
Right.
I mean, I'm a retired guy, I have a lot of retired friends, and that's the first question they have.
Exactly.
Right.
Because it might be a facility that's something that retired people are not necessarily gonna use,
Mhm.
or think they might not use.
Mhm.
So that they need to understand that here are some things that you can do in a recreation center that'll work for you, even if you're 80 years old.
Yeah, right.
But when you're in your 70s or in your 80s, you're looking at, that's a facility that may cost me $100 a month. Is that worth it to me?
Mhm.
So that's the kind of people that we need to hear from,
Mhm.
because that's the important thing. When you're deciding about doing that, the real bottom line is, they say, what would you like? I mean, last time we did it, when we had people talk, what would they like? They would like a friggin' Olympic swimming pool,
Mhm.
25 meters long. I mean, 'cause that's what we'd like.
Mhm.
Well, this is what it'll cost. No, I don't want that. So I mean,
Right.
the bottom line is what you like and what you want to afford are
Mhm.
two different things, but that's a conversation we'll have to have with multiple people over multiple times to be able to get a recreational center.
Right. And the third thing I wanted to say, and then I'll shut up, is then also is, we have to be open to, I mean, there are members of the community who are, a little bit more well-off than others, and they might actually really like this idea and might want to privately contribute money on top of it,
Yep.
which I think is really good, because, a government entity can only contract for only so high of a quality level. And there are certain things that we would like to have as a higher quality level. And that's the type of thing that like private funding can come in, from the citizens or from corporations that can support. So it's not the aluminum pull-out bleacher rack that no one likes to sit on. There would actually maybe be something with arms, maybe even a beverage holder built into it. Who knows? I'm trying to keep it realistic. But I'm not gonna say like executive leather chairs, like sit in for 4 hours and feel like you're floating. Probably not that. But, there are certain experiential things that we would like to make sure happen with this. So that way, it's not just that it exists, but that it is valued and desired and highly used because of that.
Okay, thank you. So,
Yay.
yay, going forward. Any other questions or comments on the rec center? Okay, so, it's January and we need to do our, Parks and Rec, finish kind of our goals and planning. We've worked well with, using a planning document, and, I asked at the last meeting, you could have a chance to take a look, and then in the, email that went out, focusing really on pages 7, 8, and 9. And I was wondering if you had a chance to look at those, and if you feel that it is still valid, or if there are changes that you'd like to see made.
Sorry.
I really love my notebook and I'm
Oh,
gonna grab mine.
Or
Okay.
you can also,
Look right there.
That's fine. That's okay.
I'm gonna
you
get
can look over my
Grab it.
shoulder too.
I'll put on my glasses. Not very telescopic.
So, on page 7 was our 2023 analysis. And we actually spent, some time on this. And I find it's kind of exciting. Provide indoor, all-season recreational center is number one. In this chart, you can see the source. In other words, this wasn't just, hey, my pet project is this. It wasn't a brainstorm list of our pet projects from the board. It was, well, from the master plan, this is clearly top priority. Since many of these items are more long-term investment in nature as opposed to short-term little projects, I don't anticipate a huge amount of change. But I did want to make sure that we were affirming it and confirming this is what is important and if there's anything that we want to see change. Did you have a chance to look at this?
Yeah,
Chris?
I think it's, I think in general it's valid. I think there's just the small updates that need to be made on some of the items. But I don't know, I mean, nothing we could check off the list. Maybe, well, so planning for the new budget, you know, because it's annual, that really isn't this year.
Right.
We could maybe drop that one, but even so, we'll want to have have our attention on that right at the beginning of the following year, so we don't want to forget it completely. But the other stuff, you know, like I'll say the disc golf, not sure where we ended up with that. Yeah.
Where are we with that?
And then pickleball. So we made the changes at Tanner Creek. They cut it from 4 to 2. They put up the acoustic blocks. Any update on
It's
like
just,
community feedback?
just
Or?
functioning, like it's just, Tara, right, it's just doing its thing. So Bolton or Hammerly's working great, it's just like, I don't wanna touch it.
Right.
So,
It's functioning.
so it's,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because changes were made to make it workable. And so it maybe we can take it off.
Diana might have something to comment because she was
Yeah.
right there.
Are you there?
Well, yes, I am. I didn't hear quite at the end what you were saying, Vicky. You were trailing a little bit, but basically I agree with what Megan said, is it seems like it's working. Don't poke the bear, right? I mean, I can tell you the residents around Tanner are happy. There's not a cacophony of noise, you know, 7 days a week from, you know, early in the morning until late at night.
Diana, do you hear people using it at all? Like, I mean, when I'm there, I don't really see it, and it might be the time of day I'm there. Do you see people really participating in pickleball there at all right now?
It seems like anytime there's a sunny day, I definitely hear it. And when I walk in that area, I hear it. Even if it's cold, I'm shocked that there's people out there playing. If it's
Dedication.
Yeah, if it's damp at all and moist, wet, then no, nobody plays. It's slippery and the ball's slick, and it's just, you can't play tennis or pickleball in the rain in moist conditions.
Okay. So we're really just trying to identify, you know, what are the big priorities that we need to be conscious and aware of following up on. How about McLean House?
Yeah, so McLean House, do you want a little update on that?
Well, is this something, the real question is this something that we're going to have to make a priority and put into our schedule of meetings?
Maybe at some point, but I don't know if it would be.
Especially with all the stuff that's going on in the bridge.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit on a standstill.
Yeah.
We're kind of holding off.
Okay.
So we are doing analysis of what can we use that for? And we're working really with the historical advisory groups, not just the boards, and looking at what we can actually do with that. We do have a need to show some sort of revenue there in a way, but that's not the main task. The main task is to preserve the history, be able to use the property within respect to the neighbors too, and looking at how we can use our historical advisory group, or not, groups to be able to do that. How do we show the history of that to the city of Westland and maybe other sides outside of tourism? So we're kind of looking at all of that together so we can kind of keep it the way it was.
Is somebody also looking at cost-benefit analysis of,
as part of that?
because if we tend to ask a question, what possibly can we do with this pop can? And we can come up with lots of things.
100%.
But we should ask the question, do we need the pot can?
Yeah, and I think one thing I know with the historical house, or, you know, any building, if it just sits vacant,
Mhm.
then it kind of, Bolton is not the right comparison, but you know what I mean? It just is kind of sitting there. And so having that with plumbing, having it used in a way, and
Mhm.
knowing that the goal is to, you know, it's a part of the historical listing.
So maybe
I
third
think
quarter?
maybe, yeah, that would be,
Okay.
and then we can update that if I don't have something great.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other, I mean, because,
At the top of page 8, the Cedar Oak boat ramp parking lot, that paving's done. That's, we can take that off.
oh, good, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'd say is that the idea of a fence in the dog area at Mary S. Young has been discussed many times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
It would be pretty expensive.
And I've also got some information on that today if we want to
so
talk
we'll
about
talk
it
on it
further.
when we do the dog park thing.
It's
Yeah.
an agenda, next item on the agenda.
Yeah.
So if you
But
want.
yeah, so I
to-
think that that's what we may want to do, but I'm not so sure we're gonna want to do that, because
Well, that area's
that's been
so
without a
huge.
fence for a long,
It's too-
long time.
We can talk, there's just, there's some things to weigh in.
Let's
Yeah.
hold that to the
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah, but you had it on there and. if
But it's on here,
done-
so
Yeah. it's-
Right.
you asked about here, so.
Yeah, you're right.
So Vicky, the one thing I'd be interested in adding under number 5, the maintenance, is kind of what's the trend regarding noxious weeds?
Well, you know, that was my previous world, right?
I know, so maybe
So,
that's,
yeah.
you know, not
I'm
that we
sorry,
need
what
it.
was that? What's the
Noxious
trend?
Number 5.
Oh, no.
Noxious weeds under maintenance, you know, are we having, just something to
Yeah.
talk about at some point?
I think it'd be great too.
Like, are we seeing new invasives? Are we seeing more areas? Are we gaining? Are we losing?
We have no program right now, so to have that as a conversation, to talk about options and what we can do, the problem is no funding, and that's something that ultimately I really want to try to find over the years, because removing invasives is not just that, it's also, you know, obviously it's restoring the habitat. When you start talking about fuel concerns, that's a lot of your ladder fuels when you're talking about holly, hawthorn, ivy.
We don't need to fix it today, but
No, but to be educated and know
yeah.
how we can look to the future.
Yeah.
So I would love that. Yeah.
oh, I'm going to,
Sorry, I get all excited.
no, it's really, what's always hard when we do this is as soon as we say this is important, it's like, we want to talk about right now.
But I think that it could be just from an education standpoint
Yeah.
of where should we be going
Yeah.
versus solving it
Yeah.
this year. I think would be really helpful for me to know where your guys' thoughts are.
Okay,
But we do have a large volunteer group at Mary S. Young that
That's
deals with all
one-
those things.
But it's one space out of, you know,
Yeah,
so
that's
that's
one
where,
space out of it.
and we
You
have,
start looking at all our parks,
yeah.
Yeah, and
you're gonna need a large volunteer group to do that.
Well, and it takes,
you've been pulling
it takes more than
ivy
that.
for 16 years there, and there's still a lot of ivy.
Well, and we've got a 100-acre park, and we got a
I
third of it.
know, I know, I'm just saying, it's a huge job.
No, it's a,
so I added, to that,
And it could be.
dealing with invasive species,
Invasive species would be great.
Mhm.
because that's, you know,
What's it called?
that's what the heart, that's the heart of the problem. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd, that was a good
Oh, that's
addition.
how we met before. You were spraying vinegar.
Yeah.
no, I wasn't, but there's a guy that does it.
And he looked just like you.
Yeah, there is a guy that does it. He loves to spray vinegar.
Yeah.
No idea why, but,
And I'm
But
not
it's-
a big fan of that one.
Windex.
well, it
Um,
kind of kills everything that gets
Yeah.
taken out
I know,
a lot of water
exactly.
leaf that was just blooming. It's like,
Yes,
he sprayed it to get stuff. So what are you doing?
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm doing it."
yes.
Okay.
Were there any other,
But it wasn't me. I don't spray that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right,
you know,
all
the,
right.
I
Should be
think
the-
on number 9, back to the
Mhm.
pickleball on page 8, we should add where
Yeah.
it says progress on plan. Because it only lists the acoustic block material. It doesn't indicate the other changes that were made that made, you know, the significant impact. So I think that should be included under the progress on plan.
Cut down the number of courts.
deleted it.
Yeah, I
Right.
think we were taking.
Court reduction, eliminated the private pickleball organization from making reservations. Reduced the
You know,
number of court-
I thought that, we had discussed maybe just taking that off as a big priority discussion point, because the actions taken seems like status quo is okay, unless something, you know, bubbles up again and it goes right back onto the
Exactly.
priority list. I think the term was "don't poke the bear."
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Okay.
Good.
Fine name,
Thank you for
Jack.
clarifying.
Number 3, walking, biking. So, we have the Highway 43 project, and so I think that would be good to make sure that everyone's kind of thinking about that and making sure you're coordinating with Chris. He's in the planning department. He's
Right.
the main contact for that. So if anyone has thoughts, make sure to bounce those through the
Yeah,
group or to him.
He was here last time, and he'll be repeatedly kind of working through with us on it, which is really great.
And
Connectivity.
because I remember before when we did the Highway 43 plan, the TSP, I think the idea was to make sure that the bike lanes were right there with the road. And sometimes, I've wondered, do the bike lanes routes really need to be along the road the whole time, or can they split off? So I think it's good, especially because there are some areas that are pinches throughout the 43 area. And I think those are one of the creative ways that we can view the plan instead of being as singular as this is the road and this is where all the pedestrian traffic and goes. So
Okay,
I'm sure we can talk with Chris on what's possible, like there's a code and requirements, and then how can we do that differently, where we can.
okay. I made that change. Or that addition, I should say. So in December, we talked about how really keeping our focus on the rec center and continuing the Go Bond projects and vision with the Willamette Park waterfront and trails there, making sure that doesn't get lost. So do you feel like those are covered by this priority?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll make those, I've already made the changes in the document.
So good.
The other thing that we talked about in our discussions was activating park. And we did an analysis last March that had, what do we currently have or in progress in West Linn? What are the current risks or issues, directions already identified as strategic needs, and any additional ideas? And last year, our big focus was the river bond plans, river go bond plans. And we do have indoor rec center as being on here as well. I looked at this and I thought our analysis was really good last year. I didn't see a lot of changes there. How about the rest of you? I just take a quick look at the risks. Really haven't changed that much. Are we good?
Yep.
All right. So, based on that, I started, and I think I attached the wrong version. I have gone through, I have all of the new meeting dates, and I have already put in rec center into the meeting discussion. But I was hoping that maybe before our next meeting, I could meet with Megan and we could just take a look at the priorities and then populate the rest of the meeting plans for your review and confirmation at our next meeting.
Sure.
Does that work for you?
Sure.
Okay, and you guys are still good with here's the meeting date, here's meeting discussion, this is what we can do to prepare in advance, here's the output. All right.
And Vicki, I had a question. Are you okay if I share that document with our other CAGs, that the document that you created and how it's lined out and how it helps us board?
Absolutely.
Would you be okay if I share that with them as maybe a template for them to use?
Yeah.
I've been bragging about it.
It is a good
I thought this was from
The
an
fact that some of us get our name on this, doing absolutely nothing is pretty cool. My wife looked at it when I printed it off and said, what do you do for this? Oh, no, I said, Vicky does it all.
I nod my head sagely, you know?
I just go, looks great to me. But, yeah, I figured that's what you'd say.
Well, the part that I find that's really key is onboarding is really important, and on the onboarding date, you'll be getting an email if you haven't. It's supposed to be on the 22nd, but all of the information's there. So I was able, just knowing that you got that, you can see all the links of all the important documentation to know. And so
And
it was really
there's a lot.
helpful. It
Yeah,
is.
this is pretty awesome. I mean, this is fast. You wanna, Parks at a glance, Parks and Rec at a glance.
Yeah.
And we did that list of all of the links. I think it's page 2. It has all of the links of all of the key documents that we should be relatively familiar with.
And if a topic comes up, you can go and review it and take, that's the part that's just really great. It's just
Yeah.
in one space. I think from an onboarding standpoint, knowing that people transition out of here, it makes it really easy.
So, quick follow-up on
Yeah.
that 22nd, because I got the invite to that. Is
Yeah.
that for everybody, or is it for?
I think
I think it's the whole
I think
CAG
it's-
training.
Yeah.
That's more about,
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
an,
that's
it's an annual thing.
That's the
It's the
annual.
annual
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was trying to decide, I was like, is it beneficial for me to be there? Is that helpful? I don't want to miss out on training myself, but I'm going to try to be there as well, just to hear what you guys are being and making sure I'm doing things correctly as well.
Can be kind
Because
of.
I wasn't giving you training, I just showed up and.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to just, confirm with the group, on page 3, the introduction to Parks and Rec, we talk about kind of the vision for who we are and how we work together. To this end, CRAB has taken the following actions: create and maintain a collaborative environment, prioritize work so that it's not just, hey, I have another great idea, let's talk about that. Or have somebody come in that kind of derails everything. And then working off a very transparent plan, and it's available, it's posted, it's anybody, you have a passion for X is gonna be in May. Come to the meeting, and then it has our ground rules, and, it has like a little example of a discussion topic. So are we still committed to working as this type of group?
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes.
So, the move forward action, Vicki and Megan will get together. Oh, wait, we have to appoint a new, a chair.
Okay, do you really want to pull it up?
I so move that Vicky be chair for 2024.
I
Second
that.
it.
Everybody in this room will second.
But, hold on.
I don't want to vote, I'm just gonna vote anyway.
You have, sorry, I love having Vicky as chair, but we really have to rotate.
We've never had that as an expectation.
It
Right.
is a CAG rule that the chair and vice chair must rotate on an annual basis. This was an issue in the planning commission where we had the, same chair for 6 years. And the city, recorder and, legal got involved, and they said that, it must rotate on an annual basis. Not to say that once you've done it, you can never do it again. And once you're chair, you could rotate down to vice chair. And so technically, I guess you could rotate chair, vice chair, vice chair. But I think to function in accordance with the rules, the chair should be someone else, because that's the rule. And if, I hate saying that, because you're doing such a fantastic job, but I want to make sure, because I know, and it's like, I can't just hide that. But I really, but it doesn't mean that you stop doing what you do. It just means someone else is the chair, that's it, that's all that means.
So what will be really great is on the 22nd, that all of those rules
Yeah.
we brought back
Yeah.
up. And if we find, like Scott is saying, that you're not able to, then we can go handle a vote at the next time of what we do. And the part I will say, with Vicky being sick, I didn't know who else to reach out to for a vice chair. That maybe in the future, and that's where you can get that training, where those duties can be shared. And, that might just be something to consider for the
Absolutely.
board. And then you have that, again, I think what it does come down to is if you move, then we,
Mhm.
it's that kind of cross-training to be able to keep it moving forward. So I
Right.
thank
Yeah.
you, because I didn't know that. I appreciate that. And I think we can, if we can wait to have our vote for our chair till our
Okay.
next meeting,
Yeah.
move forward
Fine.
today, and then figure out what those answers are and how we do that.
Vicky really liked me up until that moment.
Yeah, I don't know.
If he's going for a name change now.
Or doesn't the fact that she'd be willing to serve disqualify her?
No.
I mean, those are things those are things we can look to see. And I don't want to get set up for a serious situation either, but I think it sounds like
Yeah.
you have to go and change your name legally, so.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I'll get that information and email it out to everybody too, but I guess it's in a week and a half that we're having that training too,
You know,
so.
one year we had co-chairs
And that's what I was wondering if you could do
and
too.
we had different responsibilities,
I think that's only fair,
which might be, an option too.
Yeah.
So,
SAB does co-chair, so.
right?
that's not unusual.
regardless, let's keep our plan moving. I'll
Yeah.
meet with Megan,
We'll
we'll
get that
fill
laid
in the dates. I've put in all of the changes that Tara has for, the events, for the things that we know are happening.
And I'll send you updates.
Yeah, as we get the rest of the dates, we'll just put them in. So, and that will pretty much update this plan, and we'll get it out, hopefully confirm it next month. Okay, awesome. Alrighty.
Don't worry, Scott, somebody has to keep us in line here, okay?
No, that's fine.
No, it's actually good. That's where the training's gonna be good for me too. And then we figure out how to make that,
Yeah.
how we move forward. So
Yeah.
it was good that you said that.
Oh.
I'm trying to be supportive.
And I'm, of course, happy, to step down if anybody else wants to do this, it's fine with me.
Well, and I think the thing is a team effort regardless.
Yes.
And so making
It is.
sure that you set a leadership here and we figure out how to continue that leadership moving forward. So,
We're good.
yeah, really, we're going on to dogs at this point.
So, park resources for dogs.
I wasn't exactly certain what you meant by that, and I didn't know how much. I know this group has talked at length in it, and I was, for me personally, I definitely want to make sure we get to projects today, so I didn't want to labor on this too much. I had talked with Scott quite a bit about it too, and my whole thought about, the main concern to start off with, from when I came on, was dogs off leash and non-dog areas, right? And the part I wanted to convey to you, I have had a lot of experience in that. That doesn't mean I have all of the experience by any means. But, and Tara, I don't know if you're able to pull up that map. If you cannot, don't worry. I had printed a few dog pictures. What ends up happening though, and what I found with all of my communication and having 2 rangers in my previous world, those who don't go to dog park areas, because, yeah, that's perfect. They're not going there for a reason. There's a few people that say it's uncleanly or whatever, but usually those who want to walk in parks with their dog off leashes are having a different experience than going to a dog park. So the thought of the instant Band-Aid of putting more dog parks in to entice those people, I can say having 4 dog parks in my previous city, that did not occur. You did get good satisfaction from those who wanted dog off leash areas. That definitely, it's a resource that I have to look at the parks plan, but those are things that definitely come. But I think hoping not to make that the Band-Aid for enticing more people out of those areas where they're trying to have a different experience than the dog park. When you look at Mary Young and talking about the fencing, I don't necessarily, I have a maintenance perspective, probably more than anything, so I want to make sure it's known. I'm not against it, but there's just things to consider. So we clearly know our park here, right? And the size that it's used within that, the configuration, with that actually pretty sweet trail that goes around it, and where you take a fence, do you make it a rectangle? Do you make it a square? The reason for the dogs to be contained right, is running, the safety, right, is running into the road, running out to the soccer field across the other road, into the parking lot. And so when you're looking at it from that perspective, is it gonna improve the dog park experience that's there for safety, for usability, right?
Mhm.
It's trying to keep the part of, if I do this, then people who are running in the off-leash area, in the natural area, we may not solve that. So I don't want to set us up for failure. So if you don't mind, Tara, if you click to another one, and again, I'm bringing my old stomping ground around, so you can see what does occur and some of the maintenance, you could, either one of those is fine. West Beluga is probably a good one if we don't talk about it too long. West Beluga Dog Park is an area that is all natural grass that was, and my coworker would be really upset about the spray pattern on that, the irrigation. That's an old photo. But I'm sorry, Diane, you're not gonna see me be able to point at these things, but down in the bottom part, right here is the entry area, the parking lot is on that side. When you end up funneling dogs into this area, this whole area turned in where this is actually gravel, that we had to gravel. And it turned into a complete mud pit.
Yep.
So when you're thinking, if you're only open during the summer, no problem, but if you're open year round, and you guess what you see here, they're already wearing, did I just do that?
You were magic.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you can start here and they start running out. So when you look at Marius Young, this has a little bit of a slope that comes down, so water does sheen this way. But we have a constant issue with this. We were gonna do decomposed granite, which is really expensive. We did 1/4 inch minus, which is less expensive, but that is a huge footprint. And right now they're doing this whole area. So they can block this area off in the winter so this doesn't get turned into a mud pit. So as soon as you start making entry points, you start having a different level of experience and complaints about it. It's working really great. People who go there do love it. It's fenced all the way around. So as far as maintenance goes, we have to figure out how to mow the area. We have to figure out how to weed eat around there. And I'm not gonna lie, there might be having to spray around the area to keep that area clear so that we can mow and not have tall grass along the edges. Picnic space, there's one. They're gonna be adding a few more, but it just changes of how you manage it. Have to have a double dog door gate. It's really crucial to have. So if that's important, we can do those things, but it does change the feel of it. For safety, it improves for certain, right? But it's not necessarily going to improve the dog off-leash situation. Can you switch to the other side? I feel like, okay, next.
Diana, do you actually see any of this that we're looking at?
I can't see it. I'm listening to the descriptions of all that.
Oh, you can't see it? Oh, because it's not getting shared on the screen.
Share
Oh.
screen.
Well, it was a really nice
sure.
presentation.
Oh, we're good.
I could follow along with her, what she was saying in her hand movements. I could visualize it.
Yeah, just screen.
The gravel, the 1/4 minus.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is, it becomes
Sure.
a big expense with ongoing maintenance
Well,
and staff,
yeah, well, I think what it is for me.
Hey, Tara, now I see it.
Okay, hey, look at that, Tara, you do.
Woo-hoo.
What it does is, for me, safety is always number one. You'll find that with me. And then maintenance, as far as us doing work, that is true. It's work. But we're trying to, disappointment for the customers coming in too. Can we live up to the expectation? We channel if we put fencing up, as soon as you start to sort of put fencing up, you almost really need to put it up, right? Because you're giving a false sense. I think the back area, I think Scott had suggested the side by the soccer field. If you line that with fence, then you definitely are inhibiting, dogs from running from the bushes out to a middle of a road where they can't see the dog is coming. So it's just trying to look at the overall outcome and what is desired. If you want to, do you mind going to the other one? I know I'm asked Tara, I should not have asked the
No, you're sharing screen, so whatever you have on your screen will show.
yeah, if you pull, yeah.
That's better than going to the
Yeah,
stuff.
Coco's gonna be great. It's not the best picture. So this is an area that has sorry, Diana, I'm coming to the screen again.
That's
There's
okay.
a parking lot right here. There's a school here. And this is an open area that we were not allowed to program as part of the deed restrictions, so we couldn't do soccer, even though it's a perfect soccer field, we couldn't use that there. So, but people were starting to use it during COVID as actually before COVID, as an off-leash area. Actually, we were requested to have more dog off-leash areas to be able to reduce our off-leash issues in our other parks. So we made 4. So what ended up happening is we put a fence, actually we did no fence originally. We made a fence here and it's blurry, so people could walk in, and what was happening is people were walking in with their dog off leash out of their car. They would come in here, there's a group that used this really well. This is a massively huge, this is probably maybe the same size as Marius Young area. It's really big. Oh, thank you.
Oh, wow.
Sorry. I
You
could
can
have done
easily-
that.
Maybe John King.
But you can see even here, we have this issue that started to turn into it, and that's where everybody stood and it started to wear out. The part that was nice about it, this is fully fenced. The school district opened some fencing, but our goal here was to keep the kids that were walking into the neighborhood to have a safe route to school to get there. But then people started not wanting to be in here, and then they would go in there.
Oh.
So, you know, it's trying to figure out, do it, right? We're just wanting to make sure the right intention and the outcome is what we're going for. If we decide we want more dog parks, then that's what we do, and we figure out how to build them right amenities, and it increases our maintenance, and we figure that out, right? But I just didn't want the one vantage to try to fix the problem that more than likely nationally is shown not to really do that. So I was just
Okay.
I follow a Women in Parks and Recreation as part of NRP, well, not tied, it's tied to National Parks and Recreation Parks Association. And it was, somebody just popped up, like, what are you doing with your dogs off leash? And you just see this whole, like, you know, route of just conversation of, it's really tricky everywhere, of how to do it. Is it signage? Is it, you know, we don't have any rangers technically. We have somebody who goes out to close a few gates and they have a ranger shirt, but they're really not a ranger. PD is limited, and so just trying to figure out how to change, it's really a culture, right, of why. And when I was doing restoration work, I was able to kind of implore Good Dog, Green Dog to say, your tax dollars are going to restore this for habitat. If you can keep your dog on leash here, you know, then we have nesting birds. I was able to use the plore that way. It didn't fully work, but like, why should you care about having your dog on a leash, you know? And you get some people who may understand that and others who may not. It's very a national tricky thing. So I think fencing Marius Young area is yes or no, whether we decide to do that, but I just didn't want the
And
cost
when
and
we
effect
look,
is
when we
different.
look at, I mean, I've been in that park since I moved there in 1985, for a long time.
Yeah,
And I don't have a dog. My wife is allergic to dogs here, so I don't have a dog. My relatives all have dogs, and
Yeah.
we're kind of a dog family. But the bottom line is that it's really rare for dogs to run into the parking lot.
yeah.
It's even rarer for them to go through the fence, cross the road into the soccer field. Okay, so, and I can't remember a time that a dog got hit by a car. Okay, now that's just me, but I've been here for a long time.
Right.
So I haven't seen that as a problem. So one of the reasons to fence it is to do that. The people that use the dog park, and we've done this, we've interviewed them in the past,
Right,
over the years.
right.
We've interviewed them. Most of them want to keep it the way it is,
It's working for
okay?
them.
Because it's working well for them. There's some people that would like to have it fenced, but they need to go see some other parks that have been fenced to see those problems. One of the nice things now, if you look at the parking for the dog fence, the dog area like that, is people come from all different areas. So you don't get as much mud. But we still spend a lot of time dealing with mud in that area, because it's all part of the process, okay? But it's a pretty nice dog area the way it is.
Mhm.
The area that we've had problems in the past has been when people want to take their dog on the trail. Okay, and for a long time, we had, most of the people that have dogs on the trails have them on a leash. And they do that for other people who have dogs.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than being a dog walker with a dog on a leash and have two dogs come running
It's so
down
scary.
that are off leash. That's the
Mhm.
problem.
100%.
As a runner in the park, I've never been attacked by a dog off leash. Most of the dogs that are off leash are just fine, they're well controlled. And my high school guys have been in the park for many, many years, and it's pretty safe. We just as soon everybody gets leash, but some people don't
Right.
leash their dogs.
Right.
But it's a small number. I mean, I would say 5 to 10% of the people that are on the trails, when I'm on the trail, have off-leash dogs.
Right.
Some of those dogs are like 14 years old, and can't hardly think, because they can hardly walk. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I know most of the people, because I'm there usually in the morning, that do the morning stuff. I don't go in the afternoon then,
Yeah.
unless my kids are there, and then I'll be there with the cross-country or the track guys. But it works pretty well the way it
Yeah.
is. We used to have officers come and give tickets to people that had off-leash dogs. And they
Done
did
a
that.
little bit,
The
yeah.
officers hated doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
then what people found out is that if you went to court, they would wipe out the fine. So as near as I can tell, nobody's ever paid a
Right.
fine for having their dog off leash.
Right.
And all the people that have their dogs off leash kind of know that. And the police officers hate it out because they got, you know, if you're a police officer in West Linn, most of your life, because there's not a lot of bad stuff that happens in West Linn. But if you get a ticket for having your dog off leash, you go tell your neighbors, the damn cop did this. you
Yeah,
know?
and
I
that's what
mean,
we did a campaign
yeah.
together when they did that last kind of operation of, we had them, we worked with them where they, and they actually did it on their own, but we had already had talked about it, but they went to parks just to be, just to, oh, is that there?
Yeah.
Are Diane
Well,
there?
you'll probably stop sharing this.
Oh, yeah, I can stop sharing. I'm so sorry. I totally forget that too. Sorry, Diana.
That's okay. I
Um,
was hoping I could see Mary S. Young. Yeah.
we ended up, because they don't have the time for one, and so having them kind of pop into parks for like an hour and just have that presence of saying that we're here. It was nice because it gave them like, okay, I'm not gonna be stuck here all day, right?
Right.
And then they were able just to have it, so they kind of did that, and we're talking about doing that a little bit more, and from the first part is supposed to be the education. We're here, we are looking, and here's why. And then if they have to go through a ticketing event, then they can, and making sure that the judge will understand what we're trying to do. They gave out a couple tickets, and I have to be honest with you, they didn't hear what had occurred up in court.
Right.
But the other part that I wanted to not, so that's the thing, and the one thing is Mary's Young is heavily used with a lot of people, and then you go to some smaller areas, and it could be a bigger issue for others, and so I'm trying to figure out, I know signage had not been something that was desired previously by previous administration, but I feel like there are ways to do some clever, fun, informative signage where, again, that is kind of that little bit of self-policing where at least you can point to a sign. If PD shows up, they can say, and if there's an educational point to it, you might pull over to someone, like I said, with the natural areas that people were trying to encourage habitat. You know, that's just one way. I think there's some ideas, but I don't know if it's going to fully fix it, you know. The other piece I did not mention when you enclose an area, what I've seen, especially at Azalea Dog Park, it turns into a kid's playpen area. So I have my dog, I'm on my phone,
Yep.
and you don't see what's
And
going
the
on.
3-year-old is running over here.
Right, and you see them, for those who are coming and being responsible with their dog, they're paying attention, and so when you don't have that fence, and I'm not necessarily advocating, but you have to be aware of what your dog is doing, because there is a road. So it's not that I don't want to do that, but again, it's that weighing that option of it's gonna change the experience for those who are having a good one right now there. So I just wanted to arm you with those thoughts.
I really, my first reaction is, I really love your way of explaining why. Protect our habitat, keep dogs on leash.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, our societal norms are different, and I don't think signage is a bad thing.
Right.
I know it's been something that we've always tried to keep signage to a minimum, but, you know, the feedback we've heard is what we're doing is pretty good. But you know,
Yeah, I
doing
mean,
the signage makes sense.
the ordinance strictly enforced sign in Mary S. Young, well,
Yeah, I mean,
that's, see, what you-
every time I drive in, I smile at that sign.
Yeah, well, and so does every other dog owner who's all like, well, I'll
Because they
find
don't
out,
have the
yeah,
means
no.
of doing it.
But see, that is the thing, it's like, it's not about strict enforcement, it's just about, like, let's do the thing.
Change the culture,
that
you
is-
said.
Right, it's
Mhm.
about courtesy to other dog owners, because like you said, there's nothing scarier than being the owner of a leash dog and having
Right.
unleashed dogs come running at you, because then your leash dog is more likely to be aggressive.
Yes, because they're protecting you.
Right.
Well, and they're
So-
also trapped by the leash.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right?
and yeah, so it's not a good situation for them at all, and then, yeah, and.
But the advantage to the sign, if you
Yeah.
drive into Mary S. Young for the first time,
Yeah.
is that I'm supposed to have my dog on a leash.
Yeah.
Okay, now, there are people that don't leash their dogs and ignore that. But that's
Right.
a small group of people.
Right.
They can piss you off, but that's a small
Yeah.
group of people.
Mm-hmm.
But for most people, if the rule is, and this is posted, they follow the rule.
Well,
I mean, it's like,
right.
people don't always stop at stop signs. But
right.
most of the time, they at least slow down a little bit. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, the bottom line
Yeah.
is that
Right.
there's a consideration.
John,
Right.
of that group that has the dogs that are off leash on the trail, do you think, are they local, like people walking to the park and doing that, or are they
I see
coming
a
in
group of
from?
people, I usually there in the morning.
Mhm.
We work on Monday and Wednesday mornings from 8 to 11. Sometimes not as long because we're old, so we don't do as long as we used to do. And I go pretty much at least every day to the park, cause I run and walk there. And I see the same group of people in the morning, and the ones that have their dogs off the leash, they usually have a leash with them, and their dogs are very well controlled. Occasionally, there's somebody that has a dog that's 200 meters from where they are.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I stop and I talk to them.
Yeah.
And I say, here's the problem, is that you don't see your dog. We end up with feces in the middle of the trail, okay, which ends up on the bottom of my running shoe, okay? Or the dog off into the stuff we don't want them. These are natural areas that we're trying to make better, and we've been doing it for a long time. I mean, my group's been working for 16 years, and you're right, I'll be gone before we get that done. But it's nice to have people that are looking at that.
100%.
And the areas that we've eliminated the invasive species, the stuff that comes up is
It's
incredible.
amazing.
But
Absolutely incredible.
you just said. put
And a
that
dog
on
runs
top.
over that,
Yeah.
and a dog runs over a trillium, and the
Yeah.
trillium's gone.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly,
Because the dog doesn't know it's
Yeah.
not supposed to stop on a trillium.
right,
But if you have the dog on the leash, you can't stop on a trillium.
right.
So I'll talk to people about
Mhm.
that, and most people respond pretty well.
Yeah, I mean,
Some people tell me where to stick it, but that's,
we're trying to
that's life.
educate though, and I think the thing too is you have a different story. You never know somebody's dog experience.
Yeah.
You don't, and so I wanted to coin the thing and started the signage there, we didn't do it, but
Right.
if your dog's on a leash, everybody has the right and to be there, including your dog on the leash. I have been charged so many times in the natural areas doing work, wearing black, and I've had some experience, so now I'm a dog lover, but I have it my own, as soon as a dog comes running and I can't see an owner, I have this instant panic, because that fear from what has happened to me multiple times before.
Oh,
And you think of a kid who's had that, where a dog's just coming to have fun,
right,
but if your dog is on the leash, then everybody has that right to be there. So I'm definitely, anybody listening, I'm not against those dogs off leash, we want to find the right space and how you do that, but it's like
some people have real trauma.
yeah, you just don't know that experience. I think that is, if a dog is on a leash, it gives them the right, everybody has the equal right to be there, including the dog on leash. But trying to figure out that way to implore in those spaces where we're having real issues to explain why it's important.
Mhm.
It's better than a rule, we have the rule, but why, And so it's getting kind of crafty, some ways maybe fun, more imploring. I was at, a state park in, Colorado, and they were talking about dog waste. They had local kids from the elementary school draw a picture of why to pick up your dog poo in this park, and they had their name on there. I'm like, that's another way to hey, I don't know, just trying to be creative. They don't have to go, too far. We can try.
Does the, advisory board support signage that, encourages and reinforces this in a positive way that Megan suggested?
I'm not sure I'd support additional signage before, the step I'd like to take is to kind of follow up on what you were talking about around the education piece,
Mhm.
right? And how do you get that story out? Is it in something, social media? Is it something here? Just hey, the trilliums are blooming. This is a great reason why you keep your dog in your leash so they don't get trampled by everybody. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's those personal stories that feed into the
That's it.
community
Mhm.
that I would like to do that as a group.
Oh, that's
Well,
brilliant.
Before
I
we.
think
Because there's plenty, I mean, Young, there are plenty of signs that say your dog needs to be on a leash.
And the signs I'm talking about are not the ones that you, not necessarily be permanent up, it's like corrugated signs that at the trillium time,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it is a signage, but it's not one meant necessarily to be on a
It's
post.
like-
Clever.
it's
And they're cheaper that
education.
way.
You're right, we can move them around to other parks too, and, it costs money to do that as well, but figuring out what is our first step on that,
Mhm.
and how do you get that education, because we'll post stuff online, but it's that person who's walking in to give them a reason to maybe want to follow that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
if you-
I mean, it's always one of those things where I'm out and all of a sudden there's a sign, it's like, what's this here for?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, please stay out because it's too wet in here, or, restoration area or something, and it's just there for a season or two, and then it's gone. It's like, oh, okay.
Well, because there's sign pollution, right? You have it up all
Oh,
the
yeah.
time, and then eventually
Right.
you don't even
Yeah.
see it
People
anymore.
ignore it,
It's like
yeah.
the court sign outside. I just moved it, so somebody might see it, but I walk by it every day, and then people don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
But having that, so, I mean, people will pick them up and throw them. Our staff would know that, or if a volunteer sees it, but knowing it can be seasonally, or there's just some other ways that we might be able to go about it, and so to start that education.
Great.
Okay.
Do we like this?
Yep.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah. Was your
Okay.
idea, Megan, to post them like at the trailheads or along
Yeah.
the trails?
Yeah, along the trail or at the trailhead when people are coming in.
Mhm.
And it was, you know, I don't know all the messages, the restoration one was really one that spoke to me, or, you know, in open areas where you have a park, if we have an issue. I think, Merrillhurst has some of that issue where it's a good open lawn area, just to explain, you know, figuring out what that message is to why,
Mhm.
and not just
And we could
following
just,
the rule, having kind of a personal call.
yeah,
So
and we
then,
can just add it to our agendas when we talk to friends and other relatives or people
Yeah.
that live in the community and just pass the word along. Just a little bit of
Right.
tidbits of education because we're all park lovers.
Right. And I think the conversation seems to be cyclical, like it's kind of dying
Mhm.
down right now, so I don't want to just ignore it. But I want to be showing that we're trying to do proactive with what we can control. There's not a lot we can, but that's something we can do with that messaging.
Well, one of the things that I really admire about your approach is you're trying to communicate and get information out to people. This is one more message, and personally, I really like your messaging in that. So,
Thank you.
this is another example of that. Good work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. If there aren't any other dog-related discussions,
Sorry. I
no,
think it went longer than the 15
that's
minutes.
okay. Items of interest from board members.
I've got one that's, it's kind of specific, but
Yeah.
the bridge to Cedar Island, so your guys removed it, swung it, right? Last high water, a tree got caught underneath the bridge.
Always fun.
Yeah, so right now, I just checked and the river just crested, but it didn't come off, the tree didn't come off.
It's kind of wedged in there.
Yeah, my
beneath
concern
the
is
metal
when the
piece.
water goes down,
Mhm.
the bridge gets
Yep.
kind of, I'm afraid it's gonna damage the bridge section, is what it is.
Thank you. I'll have them go take a look at it. They
Okay.
sometimes will wait a little bit of time to see if it lodges, because otherwise we have to call Advanced American Diving. They're really expensive.
They are.
But I'm not, again, I don't mean to say it like that. We want the bridge to not
No,
be damaged.
yeah,
It's
and
kind of
I
that
thought,
waiting game.
I was watching, I looked at it
Thank
today,
you.
and, yeah, I don't think it's coming off.
It's
that
left in
big
there.
tree.
It's in
Yeah,
there.
it's
Okay.
big.
Thank
And
you for that. I appreciate
The
it.
water's coming
try-
fast enough now, it's not gonna move.
Yeah,
Right, exactly. So it's kind of that balance of not wanting to go too long, but
Yeah.
seeing if it will correct itself.
but as the water comes down, the bridge will settle back down on top of it again, and then it'll be harder.
It'll be harder to get out.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. You notice I'm circling, like, okay, that one doesn't. I usually have my highlighter and highlight, and
We can
it's,
do that.
I have an item that I wanted to bring up, and we don't have to resolve it or anything, but, with the, Oregon Court of Appeals, ruling Nicole Fields versus City of Newport, that complicates liability protections for cities and other trail owners.
Mhm.
I know that cities are considering, the insurer's recommendations to,
Close them off.
yeah, and we don't have to resolve it here,
No.
but,
We have to hope that the legislature addresses.
So I can give you, I don't know if everybody knows my connection, so I am on the board of Oregon Recreation Parks Association, and we have a legislative committee as well as a legislative liaison. So this is being talked about thoroughly all the way through, how this is impacting us. And there are agencies, talking about what is our next steps. I've been in touch with John, obviously a lot about it, talking with our insurance agent. Of course, they're gonna tell us to follow the signage that goes out. It's trying to figure out what approach you take. Liability obviously is number one concern, worry of, and I also worry as we start to consider building more. We're not gonna stop building, but you're like, what are we gonna do? So there is conversations, do cities band together and put the signage out? The sign is what it is. At the bottom, it does say, reach out to your legislator for feedback. But nothing is happening along those lines just now. So everybody is kind of banding together to figure out what the next move is.
And may I ask, what is the
I'm
legislation?
so
No, that's
sorry,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, man.
If I don't
You
know,
want-
No, I appreciate it.
It's
I'll-
another fun
I'll
thing to
do
learn
it really
about.
I
short.
kept my mouth really quiet during the dog conversation.
Yeah,
There'll be
no.
more to that, okay.
Yeah, no, and we want to hear more. I mean, it's just been talked about. With this one, we had a coverage for recreational immunity for parks. So we get a lot of money to build things, but there's not always the maintenance staff to be able to improve that. And so you have a nature trail that you got to Mary S. Young and you're walking down to the waterfront and you trip on a root or a rock. You were not liable to, because still.
There are supposed to be no roots or rocks in nature.
Right.
That's-
So, right.
Well, I think in this,
Well,
it was a bridge that was built and it was slippery.
So the point to, yes, for
Bridges
the,
are never slippery.
so I think the point is, that was just an example of it, and the bridge was slippery, it was on the coast. The question was she recreating or was she walking to the recreational activity?
Mhm.
So there's that debate, do you drive up to Mary S. Young and you say entering a recreational area? As opposed to, is walking recreating? So again, yes, Scott is correct, there was a bridge, it was an infrastructure, but again, you think if we have bridges, we have soft surface, if anybody knows Foothills Park, we've got, there's tree roots with asphalt are popping up,
Mhm.
and what do you do? And so currently we're hanging tight, we're taking a look at, I just took the Pimlico as an area, if you ever get a chance to walk on that trail, first off, beautiful area, but it is dangerous as all.
Need to be a goat.
You do, really, and so I was asking John, like, what do I do here, the cost to fix it,
Mhm.
we don't have
You can't.
we don't have the manpower, and all the trails that we have, all these neighborhood trails are under this park's purview. And although that would have been under streets, right? So we not only have the parks, we have all these awesome connector trails. So where do we put our resources? So that is the ultimate question, right? So that is where it's at. People had been tried to sue before on this, and it had been revoked. Finally, this one went to the Supreme Court. They took away recreational immunity. It was lobbied to open that back up to appeal it, and it was denied. So this is a first. So think of all of our we're a city, but think of state parks and county parks.
Oregon is a hiking state.
Right.
I didn't bring it up to try to resolve it.
No, but it's good to know.
I wanted to surface it
Mm-hmm.
and to just ask, is the discussion occurring? Do we need to put it on our
I
agenda?
think it's staying updated at this point, and if I find when it's going, and that's just my opinion, you guys can decide on your own if you want to.
Mhm.
We do need to figure out, and there's legislative trying to figure out what to do. I think keeping it on the forefront is important.
And because some cities have said, we're gonna keep everything just the way it is, and some cities have already closed. I mean, it's like, we're not taking that liability.
Yeah, and not in the metro area. I haven't heard of any cities doing that in our area. So we're talking with Tigard and Tualatin. Some people are like Ello, they have a lot of bridges, so they've put signage up on their bridges that they have and it's mostly tied to freezing.
Yeah.
So the freezing along Lester Farm, they've done that. So we're trying to figure out where we stepped. Yeah, some cities are considering putting up the sign that's been given by our insurance that this area is closed. But we have no way of enforcing it, right? We're not gonna be able to enforce it, but it does take the liability off. So, yes, so it can be anywhere I think it needs to be on the surface for us, and making sure that I'm updating you on what I'm hearing and that we're not just a sitting duck on it too. I am meeting with, City of Tualatin, Wilsonville, Tigard, and we're gonna be having our own kind of trails forum in the next month, that we're gonna be walking and talking regularly about what others are doing, so.
I'm so glad you're such an expert.
I
Yeah.
don't know if I am, I don't know, not by any means, but I'm just really connected with the association, because all of us are small enough that we need to know what others are doing to make sure we're collectively, and also going to legislative correctively to saying, so that is a very number one topic right now with ORPA.
You are active. You're talking to everyone else. We're trying to find a solution with all the other municipalities,
Right.
working with the legislature. They're on it.
Well, and it feels like honestly, it feels like it's going at a slug pace right now. It's like, I
Yeah.
want an answer. I don't want the city to be at risk, right? I really
Mhm.
don't. I don't want somebody to get hurt.
Yeah.
I really don't want that ultimately, but just knowing the kind of recreational opportunities we're giving,
Mhm.
those experiences come with risk by just walking in there.
Right.
They do.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have an answer for you. That's for you all to
No, that's
decide.
okay.
I think you just, your updates,
Mhm.
just make that part of your
It should be
update.
part of
Yeah.
the updates, kind of like with the rec center, to me,
Yeah.
it's gonna maybe go ties in.
Okay.
Yeah.
That could be something that's always just kind of an update. Okay.
Or at least quarterly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
something comes up to the surface, to make sure you are all on the loop of that.
Yeah, what are the liability issues with rec centers? Say a pool versus an indoor track versus a weight room?
So those are a little bit different with recreational immunity because those have their own set of standards of requirements for safety. Like a playground has a standard inspection form of what you do, but walking, pedestrian trails, like recreational immunity doesn't cover you on a sidewalk on 43.
Right.
This is for literally those areas that are destined for recreational purposes, because of the amount that we have versus the funding to maintain and manage. So, yeah, but those have all of those, they're gonna have different, very high, inspection sheets that go through. Yeah.
I'm so glad you know about all that too.
So
I know enough, then we hire the experts to really know, yeah. So,
we,
that was a great question.
yeah, I just wanted to surface it, since, I've been reading a lot about it.
It is, yeah. And if anybody hears anything, if you hear of a specific area that I haven't heard about yet, please tell me. I mean, seriously, or even, because even if it's from a different area, south, east, it's just good to kind of hear. I have a meeting coming up with the board here in the next.
There's a really good article that came out of Beaverton for the Tualatin Hills.
THBRD,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it does a really good job at explaining what it is and why they're not making any changes and.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the-
a really good thing. I actually know the director there too.
So, do you want me to send you a link to that article?
Sure, I would love it. And you can, why don't you send it to everybody so you can kind of just get a little bit more familiar with it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. Thanks.
Thank you, Vicki.
Yeah, I read the,
Mhm.
court decision. That was, really interesting. Very well constructed argument by the plaintiff.
I mean, and you can understand both ways of it, though, genuinely, you can understand it. The previous one was somebody running in Portland, who had fallen into a hole, who was legally blind, but again, not blind. But, it changed our practices we try to, working on that here, right, learning our practices, but there was a hole that was dug for, I believe it was irrigation, don't quote me on that part. They had marked it off, but the flagging had been taken away. So now I'm in the habit of, if we try to never leave it like that, but if we do, we take a picture of it to show that we had done that, our best intent. Because you just never know. I mean, that was a horrible accident for her, and that's, I get that, right? We try to never, that was in Portland, so it's like, we never do that. Or I'm learning that here, my other we. But it is those things, you don't want to discredit somebody's safety ever,
Okay, so a lot of discussions today. I know we're pushing 7:00, but, events and rec update?
That can be short and sweet. January, so our, staff did a great job putting on a polar plunge for the 3rd year. Did you make it?
No.
Oh, yeah, it was awesome. So they had, 300 people in attendance. Oh, my.
Wow.
And it was really crowded.
Wow.
We're jumping in the water, afterwards, on suits and stuff.
Oh,
So they
cool.
had It will be returning, maybe not on January 1st, but, it'll be coming back. So it was a huge success for them. But we are in full swing of summer. Our next event is the Sweetheart Family Dance in February. And kind of with our adult center, Nicole has, brought back the dances with the social, cognitive, disabilities. So that was really popular last time, so she's bringing those back and we do them quarterly.
Really?
She's got a Mardi Gras one, and then we'll have our Sweetheart Family Dance. So that's really great. We have had some resources, for families that would really enjoy being there, so that's great. We're gonna have a lot more people at this one. So yeah, so we have updated some of the events, in your plan as we go along. We've got our movies, we've got movies, we've got music sets, so we'll list that line up online for everybody, so you can figure out which one you wanna go to. We did have a deadline today for the Old Time Fair at 4:00, because we have not heard back from our carnival, we have to move forward on the grid. So we have decided to have the fair July 12th, 13th, 14th.
I'm gonna put that in there.
Sort of entertainment. Yeah. We just won't have, and we just haven't heard back from a carnival. It's really challenging for us as a small city to get, that back, but we have other options. So, we'll have some of the same, music, entertainment, boat shows, you know, all that kind of stuff, lumberjack shows, lots of things.
And I think a thing to know is we were, you know, have routinely been on the third week of July, and then that got changed because of the carnival people, and, the staff had done a full research of who else is out there. It's just the size of it is so small, and so we are trying to figure out, like Tara said, what other entertainment did we get for, you know, who are we trying to attract? What happens during the day? What can potentially happen at night? And figuring out what that can look like. I think trying to communicate that to the community too, because like, wait a minute, it's always on this, why is it changing? Trying to figure out how to explain that to people and understand why it's kind of morphing. So, yeah.
And then, then we have our volunteer work parties starting back up again. Some of them never stopped. Right, no, but, so they're starting back up, in full force this month.
Are you gonna do the Lucky the Leprechaun hide and seek?
Yes. Yep, we're updating that. I had one more thing, but I think it's.
One thing I can, to add to, you go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say staffing.
You go, please, I think it's really great.
We had another change in our recreation staff. One of our coordinators, left, moved on, so we are hiring again. So we're having a little bit of transition amongst, we have two part-time staff, one full-time staff here, and then the two half-time staff at the adult center. So we're gonna hire another rec coordinator to fill in that half-time spot. So we've got some transitioning going on right now, and it's okay, 'cause it's January a little bit.
But it's also really positive
Yes.
for, I think, a lot of ways.
Mhm.
I wanted to bring up, I don't know if we've ever had a Parks 101 in a while to actually understand what we do and how many people. So I don't know if you just heard that. There's only, besides Tara, there's one other full-time person, 2 part-time people, and then 2 part-time people that run the ACC. So this is ran by 2 part-time people with Tara's support. Pretty amazing. So what we're doing is I'm working with Tara, and she's got her team kind of lining out who's specifically in charge of certain things so we can monitor for our cost recovery. In my mind is the rec center, if it were to come into play, like what are we doing currently and what are we missing? What type of activities are we not doing that we need to start including? So I've really challenged them to take a look at it and say, what are we doing and how, if we need more people, what does that look like? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? So that kind of is happening with this transition. So that's why it'll take us probably, I've said about a year, but somebody is in charge fully of events and how sponsorship works and how do we reach out to people? What is our marketing like? And then documenting how much those events cost. Polar Plunge is on January 1st, which is great. That's double time cost-wise. It has no purpose besides the community piece is a really great piece. But could it be tied to our scholarship fund when we're talking about fees for the rec center? Can it be tied, a $10 donation or fee registration goes to our scholarship fund? Should it be tied to Special Olympics? Should it be tied to food pantry? What is its purpose besides just this really great activity? And so we're trying to look at our events to figure out how we can optimize them the best and give the best community experience, make it affordable and functional, and then what is the extra piece that can come out of it? So that's just one example. We haven't looked at other ideas, but what else can we do to really show? And I just, again, looking to the future, then we have to prioritize what we are doing, what do we do, and what do we take off? So, sorry, I hijacked Tara.
No, that's great.
Okay. Well, we're trying to take some of it off of Tara's plate too. I mean, genuinely, part of that is learning how to strategically, if there's people that want to take on a different role, how does that help Tara and myself out? Because we don't have dedicated admin staff. It's, so sorry, I hijacked that one.
It's not like Lake Week.
Huh?
It's not like Lake.
No, it's not. Put a couple extra hats on. So it's doing a fabulous job.
Great. Well, I had no idea that it was such a small team. A lot of people
Really-
don't. I had,
Yeah.
but I mean, we're a small city, so it makes
Mhm.
sense. But we do so much stuff that it feels like there must be all these people behind us.
Per 1,000 residents, we are the leanest run city in this area. And of all the comparable cities in the metro, we are the leanest run city.
If you get a chance, the budget document, I was actually really impressed.
Well, no, don't scare her off.
No, I think it's important. The front page kind of compares us to other cities. We're about 30% less, so same, almost comparable acreage to LO. Their recreation staff is about 40. we have about 20 here, so our park staff does, that's about 10 people, and then seasonals in the summertime. So that's why those volunteer groups are key. I think I wrote in the article that we're, small but mighty. And so trying to be able to convey that why something doesn't happen fast or where our priorities should be is really what I'm hoping to educate the public on, so they understand and maybe aren't disappointed by us, but seeing what we are doing. And if we have to change our area of focus, then we can shift it. But we don't know where. Everybody's just been running, is what I've told anybody. Like, what has it been like working in West Linn? And like, everybody's running. So we're taking some pauses, which is a little bit stressful for staff to go, we need to plan a little bit more and think of our long-term future so we can see where we're going. And then I know what to advocate for or say we can't do that, or we need to do something else instead of that. So I can have those frameworks to come to you all and be able to show that. So that's kind of my long-term, short-term goal to get us there, so that they don't feel like they're getting burnt out and knowing what we're asking of them, and then can convey that to the city.
But I totally changed the subject, and I'm gonna go fast. It just seems like we do so much for such a small town. I mean, that's why I love living here, because it isn't a big, giant megapolis that's out of control. It's a small city, but it seems like there's so many more opportunities, just like this man who I do see on the trails all the time, and he might see me sometimes with my dogs off leash. Not sure about that, but they're still trained, but that's a different story. Different story. But it seems like there's just a lot of more opportunity for people. There's many talented people in this town. I mean, there's people from all occupations and all walks of life, and so many people do want to help. And I guess I'd do a quick, good example. I am big into dog rescue. I work for a national group at Rhodesian Ridgeback Rescue, and so we do a bunch of stuff. But we do so much good stuff. We don't get paid. We don't have helpers, but we all do it because people have a passion. And I think there's a lot of people in this city that have a passion. People just don't know how to help, and people don't know that they could be on some other special group that helps with all of these events, So I think there's so many people to tap into.
And I think the hard part about that is we don't have a volunteer coordinator, so having that
Of course we don't.
So knowing that we did 72 work parties, and like, it wasn't us, Tara, we did a certain amount of coordination, but those groups are leading themselves with Tara's guidance and with the park staff of bringing the materials. It's like, that is the one thing, because yes, we want that tapping into. So we're even looking at updating how we ask for volunteers for events. The staff was working on that too, to show, because we do get a lot of people that actually even come to like the polar plunge. There was a whole Boy Scout troop there. All the ambassadors were there, and trying to make sure that we can find the right ways to tap into their volunteerism versus them coming and standing. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's just words, and the
How can I
volunteer
help?
gives you time. Kids need to get
There's
time
nothing
off.
to do, yeah.
Right.
We fill the water cups over there. Oh, okay, thanks.
So that is something we're working on, is like, how can we optimize our volunteers the best and have them sort of support self-organize? Because we do have, Tara does a lot, I mean, and not just Tara, all the rec coordinators are, as well as the park staff. So it is finding a way to market that there's all this going on to volunteer.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that would get involved, just there's no real portal to do that.
Well, Mike, his last name, Mike Arborist, been around forever. Perkins. I've done so many Eagle Scout projects in the city, it's ridiculous. And, he does a good job at, here are the boundaries, making sure, and Ken Wooster was good at this too, but here are the boundaries for what we're trying to achieve. Yes, and signing off on kind of the picture and plan, and making sure they're set up to do it correctly, and then they do it. I think that early preparation and planning and direction is critical, because I know there's some people who's like, I want to do this, and they end up coming up with, I think of a couple instances, and the city's like, this is not a city-sponsored activity. We have no connection with this.
Well, because we have to maintain it after too, so if it's not going to be me,
Right. Well, I was thinking of fireworks.
Oh.
Remember when we had fireworks? That wasn't city-sponsored, but anyway. So, but without a volunteer coordinator, it's just one more thing to do, adding to the plate.
I think the part that's great is it is happening. I was shocked. I did not expect when I got here that many were occurring at the level that we have. I had a halftime stewardship coordinator in LO, and it was not nearly to the number, but a lot of people here are self-motivated who are coming to us, and then we're trying to, support it. I think there's $17,000 that's earmarked in the budget for plants and any support, and that's used. Right, and those are numbers I hope to eventually go over with you when we go with the budget, as I'm still working through, but it's dedicated, it's there, so it's used all the time for purchasing plants and supplies that are needed, so.
I am recognizing that it's 7:10, and, I know that we have projects to go over. I'm just gonna toss out an idea that in our February meeting, maybe you could send us something in advance of just, here's status quo on projects, or do you want?
Can I show you a real quick thing right now?
Oh,
that
yeah,
I'm gonna
please.
do? It'll go quick, and then you can
Oh,
look at
okay,
it on
great,
your own.
great.
Sarah, do you mind pulling that up?
Sharing the screen.
I know, now, Diane, let us know if it works. I get to give nothing but credit to Ken Wooster. His last, job here was to update this website, and there's more things. It's a bigger project than just what I'm gonna share with you, but it's the Go Bond, update on the website. He was able to go through all of our projects and update, again, it's a snapshot of what occurred, when the funding was spent, how much was spent, and what's complete.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one thing I was just gonna touch base with you on. We could go, there's a couple of things, if you were to look at this is citywide, and there's still some things being updated. If you can scroll down, Tara, down to the park section. So actually, first, so you can look at the map. So they're trying to put down all the locations of where the Go Bond projects have occurred. It's a little bit sticky when there's some that are right on top of each other, but that's the ultimate idea. And then if you scroll down farther, it goes by area, and you get down to ours. Now, I will be honest with you, the financial data, I was trying to convince them to not have it on there, because Tara, if you click on that, it's the same financial data for everyone. It's a dashboard.
Oh.
So it doesn't really give you a real, it's there, but everyone is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So now, Tara, if you go back out of that, I'm so sorry to have to be like the Vanna White over here. If you go into the view of details, pick one that's completed. Click on the details, and you scroll down, it talks about the type of project. My name got switched into it, I won't know all the details of it. But it shows you the timeline of when things were completed and how much was spent. And then there's a picture of the project on the side of it as well. And even if something couldn't be completed for a reason, it explains it in there. You'll see some of them, like the McLean House had funding specifically that was pulled off for a specific reason. I think there was one other project that was taken off specifically because it just couldn't occur. The cost way exceeded the budget. So that's something for you to look at with our projects. What I will do next time, if you get a chance to look at that, maybe that might be homework.
Yeah.
Or something to take a look at it. No, it's still in progress. We're still working. The goal is, and I really liked John Williams' vision on this, is if we go out for other bonds, we want to be able to show that what we've done with this money and that we're responsible with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be marketing that goes out with this once it's all completed and updated. I think it's pretty close to that. But that's just, we want to say, hey, we can prove to you we've done well with this money, and here's where all the information is. So, I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a really good tool for us, and it's also helping me learn when things happened and how much we spent besides just looking at a budget sheet. But the big projects that are still ongoing is what I would talk about next time, is the non-motorized boat launch. We have the consultant to work on getting us the 30% drawings, and there's still a lot of things that were decided with Ken and the previous public works director that aren't maybe quite fitting with our budget means right now. So we're still moving forward with the planning, but having to look at how much of that's reasonable and possible. And then the Willamette Trail, I know that we'll want to talk about. There's, how do we get the access? That's going to be a real complex one. It won't go off because some of you want it, but it's going to take a long time to get there because there's so many complexities with that trail that have to be sorted out.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's on the forefront, of course. But
We've been working on it for many, many years.
right. And one thing I just wanted to tell you, a couple other things. I don't know if you realize, I have all the facilities too. So Historic City Hall is another part of my purview. Dylan, who is the assistant to the city manager, is taking the overall lead, but that is still part of my workings of, as well as still trying to finish up Robinwood Station.
Hey, now, at the last city council meeting, when we approved that contract, I suggested that we actually hire a third-party project manager. That,
It's not happening.
that's a bummer.
It is a bummer, but I think, what the idea is and the intention is taking what we learned from Robinwood and some things that occurred. That's why I'm watching it like a hawk. But Dylan's gonna take the lead on that, but myself and Jeremiah, we have one building facility person for all of the facilities in the city. You know, PD, library. So Jeremiah has a wealth of knowledge, and he and I will be attending and it's gonna be watched and documented, so that if something is not working right, we have the documentation to have corrective situations if we need to.
Okay.
So I would have loved that. I don't think it was in the cards as far as finances go. So we just had our first pre-con meeting today to talk about that and the level of communication, the expectation of communication, who that's running through, the setting a great foundation, and then really working through that together. So I would have loved that, honestly.
I know you would.
Because Sean knows, the reason why Dylan's there is Sean knows my focus really needs to be on the rec center feasibility study. So I've got to be doing so that's why the non-motorized is kind of doing it, saying the Willamette Trail is still there, but just in the next 6 months, there's two big things that are at the top that I'm running through, and that I can't lose track of the others by any means. So,
What about the city's building inspectors? Are they gonna be available at all?
well, there'll be all the permitting it's just like somebody building their own building. We go through all that same, so they will be involved for certain.
Okay, well, yeah, if they're signed on to be just as hawkish. then-
Yeah, well, no, and we want we want to be right. I mean, there's a different dynamics that happen at Robinwood, a different,
Right.
it was just different than what's here with the coalition as being a part, and the coalition is financially invested. They're paying for the architect. We're paying for the construction, so we are a total partnership in a different situation. That, and a really a great partnership and great people leading it. I'm excited I wish I could one hand dive into that fully, because I think it's gonna be really great, in looking at how our, not besides the maintenance, but as far as how programming can work for us potentially in the future. And that's part of that piece of looking at the rec center. It's all of our programming pieces in all of the buildings of how they work together. The other one I wanted to make sure that you guys knew is, the Free Street program, trees program is under our jurisdiction too. Trees are being delivered, and one thing that I love the program, but there was no additional staffing to manage the 300 trees planting in every residential, people who've required wanting to have those trees is quite a big feat. I came into it not knowing how it was ran before. So I have been a project manager, so I'm working with our arborist who is in and out, not health-wise but he's in and out for some health reasons. So trying to help him as well as the contractor that's been hired to do that work. But the exciting part is it's coming, it's happening. And then the part I'm really, promotion, when these trees go in, we're going to be creating tags that show that you will drive by and know that that's a city-funded tree. So you can see that it has the Latin name of the tree for the homeowner to know, but then you have that visual impact that the community came together to pay for this, so we can really see the impact that it's having. So we will use up almost all of the $100,000 to get all those trees. That's about, it's 300 and change. Do you remember how many exact?
Don't worry.
Yeah, so
Over 300.
that's another thing that's coming up that we'll be taking, some park staff time too, to come and help. And Mike Perkins will be coming to help with Ron Jones to do that, and myself. So that's happening. Of course, it's freezing now. The trees are coming.
Oh,
But I
good.
mean, one load is 2 semi-truckloads that are coming.
Oh,
Just when you
wow.
think of the dynamics and root balls and it's a heavy feat that's occurring. And if you get there and the irrigation hasn't been moved, if the root ball from the previous tree hasn't been taken out, it's not a really easy process. So I'm hoping to
Yeah, a
be
lot
able
of the trees that we lost, cut at the ground and went.
and the homeowner was
Yeah.
supposed to have that ground out, and so it's a lot of, I don't want it in that spot, I'd like it in this spot. So when you consider that
Drop the
300.
tree up the front door and say, you guys put it in.
Yeah, so the great idea of this, it just hadn't been thought out, so we'll get through this. I don't know whether it'll occur again. It's it's impressive what's occurring, but it's a really big project.
I mean, it's, we're still recovering from the ice storm. I'm really glad that we were able to do it.
I am too, right? I just think hopefully we'll be able to show the picture of what that takes to put it on.
Have we reached out to Friends of trees or any other
We're
stuff?
too late in that
Yeah,
process,
no.
and so I was actually, if I would have been here earlier, Friends of Trees isn't free. You pay for that group to come in, which is awesome. I've worked with them multiple times. I used to work with them every year, and that would have been an awesome thing to do. It's too late. They're scheduled out a year in advance.
So,
But it would have been a really great opportunity. We would have paid, the 150 white oaks that we planted, a little bit different situation at Lesher Farm. It was about $5,000 that we paid. They came and ran the whole work party, made over 60 people show up.
wow.
And that was not their street tree program. That would be different. Those homeowners would come out and they get the education. I feel like there was a real good opportunity, but this, we hadn't done that before here in the city. So in the future though, Friends of Trees will be coming back to us. There's just such a great synergy that they have, their mission, their goals, and the education they provide is just phenomenal. So.
As I listen to all those things that are under your umbrella, and I know we need to go, but
It's not with me. It's like, hey, if you don't know this is happening, this is really great stuff we're doing. So.
I really, Scott, would, as our council liaison.
Yeah, yeah, what do you want me to
The
tell
message
city council?
that needs to go out is,
Yeah,
we have an amazingly understaffed
yeah.
group.
Uh-huh.
We have awesome people,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I speak for the group. I am afraid that we burn people out, and that
Right.
our city council needs to do a couple things. One, make staffing a priority, but then two, run some interference and really question, before we commit to doing something, can we actually do it? Because, I'm listening to this and this and this, and I know what it takes to manage these projects.
Well, please know it's
It's
coming
hard.
from, I want you to know, it's not like, woe is me with my violin.
No,
It's
no,
really,
no.
It's just, I think the staff needs the credit for what they're doing, and we're not getting the messaging out enough. And I
Mhm.
even as a citizen, I want to see that so that they understand and can have the appreciation.
Well, there's,
Can people bring in cookies or like giant lasagnas?
I mean, we get really big. People did during the holidays. I think we had 2 or 3 different, people do, actually.
Yeah.
They do.
but,
So that doesn't need to stop.
I mean, if we're an advisory board, the biggest risk
Yeah,
is
right,
losing or burning out really good people.
right.
But then there's another liability, and that is there are not enough resources for the due diligence and accountability that are required for good project management. And, there have been many projects, we go merrily down the way, the council says we need to do this, and it's like, this has turned into a monster.
Mhm.
And I'm not gonna get into what projects fall in that category, but if we don't have the resources for good due diligence and accountability and to reasonably manage it, we have to question if we can do it.
Are you still talking about the can?
No, I'm not talking about the can, I'm just talking, I worry,
Well, we used to have, for a long time, the 2 Kens. There
Mm-hmm.
was a park director and assistant park director.
Oh, there was
And
an
then-
actual assistant.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
there were two
Full-time.
people,
two
full-time.
full-time people.
Not an assistant too,
No.
but an assistant.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
Worcester went part-time because there wasn't enough money to pay 2 of them,
Uh-huh.
and he did.
Well, what
worked a
happened
lot.
is 2 field staff though, so it increased the field staff, from my understanding, the park side to 2 additional people to help take care of that. So it was kind of that, I don't know if
We traded it.
I want to think of it as personal sacrifice that those guys did to help get additional staffing. But that, it's one of those things, and I think of, here's an example, and I guess it just is kind of letting you know how I think about things. So I'm, right now for Willamette, this will come up later, I wanted to bring it up, and if it's a little topic, if I can talk about it, and
Yeah,
tell me if
sure.
I need to wait. But for example, right now, all the historical items that people want to put in parks are coming to me. So right now, I have a rock, I have a tugboat, which you'll hear about at council. There's historical signage,
We've talked about tugboat, and we recommended that we don't do it.
yes, and that's been noted to council.
Okay.
But it's coming
They
back,
said no.
but,
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's
We strongly
That's on the
recommended that we
16th.
don't do it.
yeah,
That
John,
was
I think,
unanimous.
so.
Yeah.
unanimously against the tugboat. Would you
Yeah.
take that vote?
She's got the minutes.
Yeah, the minutes, and John has them, he's
2
the one that
months
put the, and I can get that, it should be in, so, if, the tugboat, we'll get to that. But I just wanted to
You
hear.
don't want
I'm baffled how a tugboat fits into any of this.
Well, so,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm asking lots of questions of myself, so I'm sitting here, I've got the tugboat, this really cool rock, it has a whole history thing.
That was a meteorite?
Yep, oh no, there's another rock.
Oh, that other,
Yeah,
oh, another.
there's historical signage. I had this great tour meeting with PG and the coalition about items that are, you know, hardware from the paper mill and how do we place those? So I went to John to ask it, and I'm sitting back there, I'm like, okay, this is, I'm a parks director, title, you know, my job is to protect the land and flourish the land and the recreation activities. How am I to decide what's valuable to our city as far as historical preservation?
Yeah, it shouldn't have
So-
to be you.
But I mean, well, and am I qualified? Like, who am I to say that? And the budget that comes along with that, a rock just alone is a rock on one hand, but it has to be cared for. It's somebody's expectation for passion on that rock that it's important to them. And then if I add that layer on to that protection, should the park staff be the ones cleaning off the graffiti of something that's an artifact? So I've got these items, but how am I to decide, and those items are getting donated without a budgetary expectation that comes along the side of it, the tugboat, again, however anybody feels about that. So you're gonna see from me, I'm trying not
Yeah.
to come with you with my opinion.
Yeah.
What are our options with it? And
Right.
am I to be the one, is the parks board the one to really be deciding what goes into our parks and where? It's a historical piece.
Mhm.
So I did ask him that, and he's working on a donation policy that if somebody wants to come to, and you'll see that in the council, we don't have it fleshed out, but like, what is the obligation by the city taking it? Who owns it when it comes? Is that rock the city's? The PGE, is that part of the coalition, or do we own it?
Would that rock somehow be considered art if something was done to it? And then
It-
would the art and culture commission be interested in designating
Well,
some of this budget to
Those
it?
are kind of, well, or the historical, you know, historical advisory board. Those are some things, so it's like, I don't want to be the one to say, from a maintenance standpoint, I want to say no, if I were to go one way.
Right.
Our history is very important in West Linn, but who am I to decide what's the most valuable with our resources and our story? And then for me, when I look at Willamette, everybody wants to put stuff in a Willamette. I would love to have this contiguous message. You know, through, if we're thinking the long term of the trail, what is the story at Bernard Landing that leads you down to the mill? And what does that look like? What is that template? You can put things up temporary that can be changed as the pathway goes, but you don't want it to be hodgepodge. You want to have a story, you know, that Willamette and Marius Young, they're regional parks, let's just be honest, right? They're maybe not listed that way, but how do we tell that story?
Well, you weren't here. I'll just say,
Yeah.
we had a very big discussion about Tugboat
Yeah.
and about Willamette Park.
Yeah.
Willamette Park is already maxed.
Yeah.
It is one of the few waterfront that is actually accessible
And used by a ton of people.
and used by a ton of people. The advisory board said absolutely unanimously, we do not want to see the tugboat in Willamette Park. This is not a good use of resources, it's not a good use of space, we don't want the liability, we don't want any of it. Strong recommendation against it. So, you know, there was a pretty robust, lengthy discussion about it.
And in those notes, I gave them to John, but I didn't read them thoroughly, was there, and I can look them up, but just to make sure we get to the why, so it's not this, you know, why. Like you said, I mean, you had the summary of why, but we can get those notes, and it's just, again, but again, there's other things to weigh with. I was, you know, I had presented to John, looking at some of these larger pieces, what honors the history the most is, and I'm, again, if anybody's online, I'm not against the tugboat, I'm kind of like, but how do you take pieces of the boat and use it as art and use information, like what, if the goal is to share the story of the boat and preserve that part of the history, what is the best use of it? Is it the full boat? Is it a portion of the boat? Is it a replica? Is it, I mean, what is the ultimate goal by it? And that's the question. I don't know those things. And so that's kind of, and I guess that longer story to tell you the way I think about, like, okay, I'm evaluating, how do we do this right, give it the best justice, not lose something that's valuable, and honor it in the right way, and allow us to also take care of it in the future? And should it be us caring for it? I'm not trying to push it off on somebody else, but we remove graffiti off of doors and things, and our crew, the artwork that's down there right now by Bernard Landing was completely graffitied, and somebody on their own came and covered up the graffiti, which was nice, but it left paint all over, and then we had to go in and carefully take it off, the paint, plus that it was on the papers. But again, but we didn't see it, somebody else, and so that's where I'm like, oh my gosh, what happens when we have a mistake on a piece of artifact? So I just want to more so let you know those conversations are occurring. They just started last week. I just had this, like, I'm getting inundated and I don't want to mess it up. So that's where the tugboat came forth. It's going to council on the 16th to have the conversation, because the timeline with the tugboat is that it needs to move from where it's storing at the end of February. It has to be moved. This is kind of the last plea as to what are we doing with it. And so I just, again, so I didn't want to
I
stir
was
the
looking
pot.
through my notes,
Yeah.
and it was in December of 2022.
Thank you.
And
Tara found
you
it.
know,
way back.
yeah, some of the different, and I remember the discussion being around, not that it wasn't a great idea to preserve it and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
It-
but not there.
It was, we decided at the moment to say that we need to take a very recreation-centric view of what the impact is of putting this down at Willamette. And that's the view, because we were talking
And I
about,
think
oh,
that's
what
great
about
to hear.
ADA? We go, what about graffiti? And it's like, no, let's not talk about that. It's like, what value would this bring to our park? And what is the negative impact of having it in there, right? And I think from a true recreation standpoint, we came
Doesn't do
to,
anything for.
this doesn't fit with the long-term vision that we have there. Not to say that we shouldn't keep it.
Right.
Or put it somewhere else,
Yeah.
not in a park, right? Or it has this wonderful historic value. You hate to see it. And I hated saying no, but from a park standpoint, yeah, I think that was right.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's the thing to kind of, and that's where my messaging on it too is trying to be, I'm not against it. Is it really going to honor it in that form, and can we do it well? That to me is the bigger question, right? And it's at the space to be at. And so that's why I'm bringing it up today, because a lot of those things are coming my way, and trying to figure out how do you preserve when you're walking along the Willamette to, you know, to the mill area, to where, you know, the historic city hall is large pieces of machinery along the pathway. Is that good or not? And so they were asking me, and I said, well, I'm seeing a natural area.
Yeah,
So
Don't want
taking,
something there.
edible
Right.
trails.
so informational
Yeah.
signage, and we're gonna save a lot of the gears, because those gears can be, I don't know if it will be, but there's all these gears, small and big, those can be used to take the trail, whether it's on the informational signage in the cement pad, wherever those things are, you can get that guidance to get down there, but not lose the perspective of the nature that you're walking through, but understand it was really heavily industry at one point in time. So how you tell that story, I think, is really important. And so, and again, not to have it look like it's hodgepodge, you know, there can be, and North, you know, Old Historic Willamette has some signage down there to get people to move up. And so I said, I want to be able to coordinate that. You know, a sign can go in and we can change it out to meet the connectivity piece of it, but just wanting to make sure we're not, I don't want to waste people's hard-earned money on something that doesn't quite fit, you know, with the overall vision. So.
I have a whole page of notes.
I know, I got
on
it
it.
all pulled up, I'm
Man.
sorry.
I'll share it
Yeah.
after the meeting.
Yeah, but I think the thing, I guess what I get at it is,
Lady.
when we get
Oh.
to it, it's understanding, I'm trying to come from their perspective, that they have this real tie to this history, and how does it fit within the park, you know? Or how can it be best honored, I think, is ultimately, right?
Yeah, maybe the question is, how can it
These
best
were
be
the
honored
big
within the
reasons.
community, not within just park,
Exactly.
Yeah.
right?
I think that's
It's a broader.
100%, right? And, yeah. So,
So it's
I'm sorry.
it's 7:30, and I'd like to put a
Right.
pin
Yeah.
in the meeting, if that's okay.
Okay with me.
Uh,
I gotta go wrap more plants.
Okay, just the go forward actions, you're gonna send out the SOW.
Yep.
I've already sent the, link to that article on the regulatory thing to you and Tara that you can send out.
Thank you, yep.
We're gonna focus on proactive communication with the, dog parks. We're gonna add recreation immunity rule, update quarterly. And, we're going to add, as a homework assignment, go to the website for a bond project update. And I think that's all of our action items leaving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I miss anything?
So Vicky, quiz
What?
time. What's everyone's name?
Oh,
No.
that's Karen.
See, wait. We need to officially close the meeting. If there's nothing else, our next meeting is February 8th. It'll be a robust agenda. Megan and I will get the, updated plan out prior so that you can take a look at it. So that should be a fast discussion. All right? Okay, so we're officially closing the meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, let me just say, I had no idea as a citizen that thinks he has a clue, and I had no idea. All of it. Like every topic you all are talking about, I have no idea. There's so many layers to everything.
So are you excited now?
Oh, yeah, no,
You're pumped?
and I will say,
I mean, like, this is
no,
a mess.
I used to, it's the biggest bureaucracy. I used to work at OHSU, so
Oh, wow,
I
okay.
understand